Today's lesson is on understanding percents. Percents are like ratios and are used to compare two quantities. Percents compare one quantity to 100, and the percent always means out of 100. You can express a comparison such as 45 out of 100 as a fraction, ratio, or percent. In the hundreds grid, you see that 45 out of the 100 parts are shaded. This means that 45% of the large square is shaded. Since there are 55 boxes that are unshaded, we can say that 55% of the square is not shaded. Let's try to write this example as a percent. It says 16 out of 100 cats are long-haired cats. What percent of the cats are long-haired cats? So we can write it as a fraction, 16 over 100. And since percents are always out of 100, this means that 16% of the cats are long-haired cats. In this example, it says a fruit display of 50 apples has 41 green ones. What percent of the apples are green? First, we want to write a fraction. We know that 41 out of the 50 apples are green. Since percents are always out of 100, we want our denominator to equal 100. Whatever you do to the denominator, you also have to do to the numerator. So 41 times 2 would equal 82. Percents are always out of 100, so we can say that 82% of the apples are green. In this next one, it says, of the 2,000 people at a concert, 240 are teachers. The rest are students. What percent of the people at the concert are students? So we want to write a fraction of what we know. 240 out of 2,000 people are teachers. We want our denominator to equal 100 since percents are always out of 100. You could divide the denominator by 20 to get 100. Whatever you do to the denominator, you also have to do to the numerator. And for this one, 240 divided by 20, you would find the answer to be 12. Since percents are always out of 100, this would be 12% of the people at the concert are teachers. The question says, what percent of the people are students? So we have to do 100%, which would be everyone at the concert, subtract the percentage of teachers, and we would find that 88% of the people at the concert are students. Pause the video and try these 3 practice problems on your own. Okay, let's go over the practice problems. Out of 24 chairs, 12 are brown. What percent of the chairs are brown? So we want to write a fraction. 12 out of the 25 are brown. Percents are always out of 100, so we want our denominator to equal 100. 25 times 4 would give us 100. Whatever you do to the denominator, you also have to do to the numerator. So then we'd have to do 12 times 4, which equals 48. Percents are always out of 100, so this would equal 48% of the chairs are brown. In the next question it says, of the 400 animals in the zoo, 20 are lions. What percent of the animals are lions? We want to write a fraction, 20 over 400, which would represent our lions at the zoo. Since percents are always out of 100, we need our denominator to equal 100. We can make 400 equal 100 by dividing it by 4. 20 divided by 4 would equal 5. This would mean that 5% of the animals at the zoo are lions. What percent of the animals are not lions? We would have to take the 100%, which would be all the animals at the zoo, subtract the amount of the percentage of lions, and we would find out that 95% of the animals at the zoo are not lions. Now we're going to express percents as fractions and as decimals. So first we're going to do 24% as a fraction. Percents are always out of 100, so we'll write 24 over 100. And then we need to simplify our fraction. So we can divide 24 and 100 by 2, and we get 12 over 50. When we see the fraction, we see that we can still reduce the fraction again. So we're going to divide by 2 again. And we get 6 over 25. So the fraction of 24% would be 6 over 25. Now we want to write the percent, 24%, as a decimal. So we'd write 24 over 100, which would equal 24 hundredths. So we write 24 hundredths as a decimal. Here's another example. 78% as a fraction, we'd have to write it as 78 over 100, since percents are always out of 100. And then we want to reduce, and in these, since they're both even, we can divide by 2. 78 divided by 2 would be 39, and 50 divided by 2, 100 divided by 2 is 50. So the reduced fraction of 78% would be 39 over 50. Now we want to write 78% as a decimal. Percents are always out of 100, so we're going to rewrite it 78 over 100, which is said as 78 hundredths. We can write that as a decimal as 78 hundredths. Pause the video and try these 3 practice problems on your own. Okay, let's go over the practice problems. In the first one, we'll write 43 over 100. This fraction is actually already reduced, so we would leave it as 43 over 100. Then we want to write it as a decimal, so it would be 43 hundredths. 43 hundredths. In the next one, 6%, we'd write it as 6 over 100. We can divide both 6 and 100 by 2, and we would get 3 over 50. And that would be the simplified fraction of 6%. Now we want to write it as a decimal. So if we look back at our original fraction, 6 over 100, we would say that is 6 hundredths. So we write it as a decimal. That looks 6 hundredths, 0.06. In the next one, 367%, we'd write it as a fraction, 367 over 100. We want to reduce, so 100 goes into 367 3 times, with 67 over 100 left over. That would be our simplified fraction. Then we'd write a decimal of 3 and 67 hundredths. Now that you've learned how to write percents as decimals and fractions, I want you to rate yourself. How well do you understand? Do you understand the concept clear, somewhat clear, or not so clear? Write how well you understand it in part of your notes.